Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Shayne. I write romance and romantic fiction, and today I'm sharing some fall book recommendations. Some are cozy, some are darker, all of them are romantic. So let's go ahead and get started. First up, I have Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. This book is set during early to mid-October. It takes place on an island in the Pacific Northwest, so it has lots of mist and lots of atmosphere. And the story is about a young woman named Emery who, back when they were teenagers, her best friend was murdered, and the boy that she was dating was accused of her friend's murder. And everything changed after that. He disappeared and she was left alone to deal with her grief over two losses. And now she's grown. She is helping to run the family, I think it's a tea and herb shop. So a little bit of witchy spell vibes going on there. And one day all the leaves turn color overnight. And that's the day that her boyfriend at the time, who was accused of murdering her best friend, and then he disappeared, he shows up back on the island to settle the affairs of, I believe it is to settle the affairs of his mother, who has just passed away. And all sorts of strange things unravel from there, including secrets being unearthed and Emery being determined to figure out what really happened the night that her friend was killed. This is Adrienne Young's writing is so atmospheric and gorgeous. So if you are looking for a book that has like the hint of magic and like it's an island town. It's a town on a small island in the Pacific Northwest. We have the mist and the ferry and the sort of like a tourist culture, tourist economy, where a lot of people come to the island during the fall for apple picking and all of that, and then go away during the winter. And so everything kind of revolves around that tourist economy with apple orchards and, the magic, the tea shops and the sort of mystique of magic and spells. And then you have the idea of nature being alive with different spirits and different energies, and having an affinity with nature, and having nature sort of be a warning or a danger. It could happen. It could go either way. You just never know. And it's just, I really, really enjoyed reading this book. I have enjoyed all of her books. This is the first one of hers that I read, and I think it's her first adult book that came out. And it doesn't have like overt magic or outlandish magic, but it's like the magic of mystery and the magic of desire and intention and jealousy, and the magic that exists in nature, and the magic that exists with energy and intention. And it's also got the fall season is a huge part of the story as well. So, and there is definitely a romance in the book between Emery and August, a second chances, shall we say, and all of the angst that came with kind of the circumstances under which they were separated and now coming back. So that is Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. Next up, we have a book it came out a few years ago. I think it was maybe 2009, 2011. Here we go. Yeah, 2011. It's called First Grave on the Right by Darynda Jones. It's the first book in a series. I believe the series went all the way up to book number 13, which is very fitting. This is a little bit more on the funny, snarky, cozy side, but also kind of having maybe some urban fantasy elements as well. It is about Charlie Davidson, who is a private detective / Grim Reaper, meaning that she can see and talk to dead people. And usually what happens is she is one of the portals that spirits will pass through to get to the other side. But if spirits are stuck on the earthly plane, she can see them and talk to them. And oftentimes what happens is that if somebody was murdered, they will try to find her and say, hey, I need you to bring my murderer to justice, because they're still out there and that's not all right with me. And so she's a Grim Reaper. There's the Grim Reaper, you got ghosts, that sort of magical element. And there's also another mysterious entity that keeps contacting her. And those encounters are very, shall we say, sensual and exciting and arousing. And she's like, who is this entity? I don't think it's a ghost. It's got to be something else. So as that sort of mystery evolves, you get into the sexy romance of the story. You have, as far as like, I think what makes this cozy for me is that it's very, you have a lot of quirky characters that recur, a lot of close relationships. She and her best friend run this private detective agency together, where Charlie is the investigator and her friend is like basically the office manager. And then her friend has also a teenage daughter who pops in and out of the mix. I think there's her Uncle Bob is also somebody he runs. I think her Uncle Bob is actually, see, now I'm trying to remember if he's retired. It's been a few years since I read this book. I think he may be a retired police officer who now runs a bar. And so the bar features a lot in the story. It's like one of the main settings. And then there is an actual police detective that she butts heads with, who's also not bad looking himself, has also got his own attractive qualities. And a lot of times she has an advantage in helping to sort of figure out what's going on, because she's in contact with the victim's spirit who can give her clues. And she gets into all sorts of wacky and wild and, yes, dangerous shenanigans in her adventures to sort of help put these spirits to rest. It's really funny. It's a really fun, good time. And if you like the first book, you have like 12 more books that you get to read. And that is First Grave on the Right by Darynda Jones. Next up, also on the cozy side, and also sort of on the mystery side, is Secondhand Spirits by Juliet Blackwell. This is also the first book in a series. This series currently goes up to book number 11. I've read every book in the series. It is about, this story centers on Lily Ivory, who is a witch / antique or vintage clothing shop owner. The tagline, love the vintage, not the ghost. So she as well is running like, her business in sort of the earthly plane, which is the vintage store. And she also is a witch, and she also can pick up on spirits or pick up on energies from clothing, which is part of that's how she runs a really successful business, because she can sort of pick clothing when she goes on all her excursions to like estate sales and stuff. She picks clothing, not just necessarily on the looks of the style and the period that it came from, but also the energies that are coming from those clothes based on the previous owners. And that's also how she kind of helps people who come into the store looking for clothes. She can help match clothing, the energy of a certain item of clothing, with the energy that person needs in the outfit that they're looking for. And sometimes will be able to pick out something that they would never have picked out for themselves, because she can sense that energy match. And that's part of her talent in running a really successful clothing shop. But she's also a witch, and she's kind of trying to keep that under wraps so that she can because when she was younger, she had a very traumatic experience when she was suspected of being a witch. And that has caused a lot of trauma and a lot of sort of loneliness and hesitancy to trust people in her life. So this book and this series is about her learning to make friends and to trust people, and also to trust and embrace her own magic. What makes this story really sort of cozy and fall, like a great fall book to me, is of course the witchcraft and the ghosts and the spirits and the demons, all of those fun magical things. But it is still a little bit on the cozy side, even though some of the stories were pretty dark, had dark themes, dark villains who did really terrible things. This still is more on the lighthearted side, I would say, with the writing and the way the stories are resolved. And what makes this cozy is, to me, is, for example, you have the clothing store setting, you have the description of different time periods and different vintage pieces. She lives in her little apartment above the shop, and her apartment is very cozy and very tricked out with all of her witchy stuff. She has this beautiful kitchen where she does all of her brewing, because that's her other talent, is making potions. She has an outdoor balcony garden where she grows all of her herbs, and she'll wander out to the garden to pick herbs that she needs for a spell she's working on. She has a familiar who is kind of like in Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, where Salem, in the TV show, on the Netflix TV show, Salem was visioned as a goblin, sort of a goblin creature who transforms into an everyday companion to help Sabrina. So Salem is a cat, but the original, like Salem's native incarnation, is a goblin. Kind of similar here, where her familiar is a goblin sort of creature, and he transforms into a pot-bellied pig, a miniature pot-bellied pig, when he's in his his earthly, or sort of like normie, shall we say, guise. And so there's always, so we have that cuteness. It's quirky and it's adorable. We always have this scene where people who have never met Oscar, her familiar, who've never met him before, are like, oh my God, look at that cute pig. So we always have that. And then we have our recurring cast of characters. Another thing I really like about this series is we have diversity of people, not just nationality and race, but also diversity of age, diversity of sort of life circumstances. And this book is about witches, and so you see a different range of magical practices in these books, which I really appreciate. So you have Lily, who is part Latina, indigenous Mexican, and then you have her two people that work in the shop with her. One is an African-American college student, and the other one is an older woman. By older, I mean over 50, who is Wiccan. So already you kind of have her indigenous folk practices, her magical practice, and you have like the Wiccan tradition. And then later in the book, she teams up with another magical practitioner who is a practicing voodoo practitioner. So you have his sort of viewpoint and his, orientation as well, as far as there'll be lots of discussions. There'll be discussions where he'll be like, okay, what you're dealing with is not part of my tradition or part of my practice. It's not part of my spirits that I deal with, so I can't really advise you on that, but I can tell you what I would do in my tradition. So we have that diversity. There's also a character in here who is a recurring character who is living on the streets and who's dealing with addiction. But the really cool thing about how he's written in these books is that is a circumstance that he's dealing with. It's a life circumstance, but it's not his defining character. So, and you just always have, you always look forward to seeing your different conflicts. We also have and San Francisco. This is set in San Francisco, so you're getting a little bit of like Charmed vibes there. But there is like a San Francisco San Francisco Police Department detective that Lily's always coming up across. And he's sort of like an antagonist, did not really, she was actually a suspect in a case when they first met. And he didn't kind of really believe that in all the witchy stuff, but as things get weirder, as more ish goes down, he's like, okay, maybe I need to go talk to the witch/vintage shop owner to get some insight into this weird case that I'm dealing with. And then we have another recurring character who is a very powerful witch himself, who you never know if he's first of all, there's incredible sexual tension between him and the character, but it's kind of like that tension where you don't know if he's an antagonist or not, and you don't know, and he's like the person that she always ends up having to come to for help, but she doesn't want to go to him for help because then she'll owe him a debt that he's going to collect later, and that debt will be one that she doesn't want to pay. So you have all of that going on, and you just get to look forward to what's going to happen next in each new book. So this is another great book for the fall, and it does have romance in it. Like, the romance isn't the central driving plot, the mystery, like finding out the mystery, who, you know, what's going on with whatever craziness is happening is the driving plot, but there is a romance in every book, and a romance that develops over the course of the series. So that is Secondhand Spirits by Juliet Blackwell. Next up, we're getting more now into some, I would say, darker and gothic stories. The next recommendation I have is An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. This is sort of a dark academia. And it is, I wouldn't say it's a retelling of, but it definitely it's sort of an homage, reimagining of the vampire novel Carmilla. And it centers on two young women who are at this sort of prestigious college in Massachusetts. So it's taking place, you know, in the fall, the beginning of the school term. And there is Laura, I think her name is Laura. Laura Sheridan is our main protagonist, and she gets accepted into this school, into this very hard to get into sort of literary poetry program in the school. And she immediately is drawn to and gets into this sort of involuntary rivalry with another student, a very alluring and mysterious and seductive Carmilla. Added into this mix is their professor, who is, you know, a professor who maybe is a little problematic. She herself is one of those sort of larger-than-life professors that, like, all the students want to impress but are also terrified of at the same time. And this professor, I think it's de La Fontaine, she sort of zeroes in on these two characters, on Carmilla and Laura, and sort of pit them against each other in this rivalry, and sort of give them special attention, but also kind of push them really hard. And underneath all this, some like weird supernatural type things are happening because there are vampires. So here we go. We got the vampires. We have a sapphic romance. We have serious sensuality and sexy times. So the kind of sexy times that you might expect maybe from a vampire book, particularly if you think of vampirism as a metaphor for sex and desire, particularly sex and desire that's a little taboo, outside societal norms. You're going to get that, which is of course, that's right up my alley. The other thing that makes this sort of a really fall book, particularly in terms of like going back to school and learning, is that Laura Sheridan is really, there's scenes where she's like learning all this new poetry and learning about all these writers that she hasn't heard of before, particularly writers who are writing about things that really speak to her, because she is exploring her sexuality that, you know, hasn't necessarily been looked upon kindly by society. And she's dealing, you know, she's learning, she's kind of awakening and learning about all these other writers and other artistic expressions that have to do with desire and sexuality, which was one of my favorite parts of the book. So that is An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. Last but not least for the fall books recommendations is Lucy Undying by Kiersten White. Lucy Undying, another vampire story. It is a retelling of Dracula from the viewpoint of Lucy Westenra, who in the Dracula books was one of his first victims. And this was this is one of the reasons Lucy Undying is one of the reasons why I reread Dracula at the beginning of the year, because I wanted, number one, I wanted to watch Nosferatu, the new one, and by oh my gosh, now I can't remember the filmmaker's name, but he's the same one who did The Witch. Anyway, I wanted to reread Dracula so that I could see that movie and, you know, have a really good appreciation for what he's taking from the Dracula story and what he's changing. But also because I knew that I wanted to read Lucy Undying, which is a reimagining of Dracula. And similar to Dracula, Lucy Undying is told in a similar format. You know, Dracula is told in a combination of diary entries, journal, like medical journal entries, newspaper clippings, transcripts, that kind of stuff. And Lucy Undying is also told similarly in that you get the diary entries of Lucy from back in the day when she was a teenager before she was victimized by Dracula. And then you get present day Lucy and the transcripts from her therapy sessions. And you also get sort of the first person account of the other protagonist in the story, Iris, who is in present day, who goes back to one of the houses that's connected to Lucy in the present day, and is also going through her own kind of thing of sort of trying to escape her past. Because Lucy is trying to basically escape the thrall of Dracula and escape sort of the trauma of how her life was cut short by, you know, being killed by him and being turned. And then she meets Iris, who is sort of escaping her own, dealing with her own family drama and trying to escape as well. So the two of them meet, and the story is told through the combination of those three things. And what's really interesting about this story is, and it does take place primarily in the fall, you get the journal entries from Lucy when she was really young, before she was turned into a vampire. And the interesting thing that she does in this story, the author does in this story, is she basically has it that Lucy is keeping two diaries because Lucy is attracted to women. Back in the 1800s, when that was even more societally taboo than in more recent times. And she has a mother who she knows is invading her privacy and looking for, like, you know, she knows that her mother would go into her room and look for her diaries. So she has like the diary that she keeps out, you know, that she knows that her mother will find, so that her mother will think she's found the diary. And then she has a secret diary that she has in a more hidden away even more, which is where she's writing, you know, I'm in love with this girl and I can't stand these men who come around, and I'm so sick of being pushed to always look pretty, and I'm so sick of being pushed into getting married and all of that. So you get those diary entries. Then you get her therapist transcripts, and the therapist transcripts tell you Lucy's journey, or basically Lucy recounting her journey from the time she woke up as a vampire to now. And it's an epic story. So the book is a bit of a chunkster. Like with Dracula, I read it and listened to it on audio at the same time so that I could really focus in on it. And it is an epic story. It traverses, of course, decades, centuries, and the entire globe pretty much. And then you have Iris, who's kind of your more snarky, modern voice, and the two of them have their own love story, which is really exciting. So that is Lucy Undying by Kiersten White. All right, that is it for my fall book recommendations. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of those books and what you thought, and what you are reading this fall. Until next time, bye!